Throughout the history of football, England have had many great goalkeepers, but none of them can hold a candle to the great Gordon Banks. The Yorkshireman played 73 times for England over a 9-year period, helping them to World Cup glory and becoming immortalised by making arguably the greatest save of all time. This is a story of Gordon Banks, England's greatest ever goalkeeper. Gordon Banks was born in Sheffield on the 30th of December 1937. He left school aged 15, bagging coal at a local mine, which would serve him well for his career by improving the strength of his upper body. After playing in goal for Sheffield schoolboys, he then moved to Millsport whilst working as a bricklayer. It would be here that Banks got his lucky break. Chesterfield scouted him and offered Banks a trial with the youth team. He was successful and signed a part-time £3 a week contract. His first season was not successful though, as he played for Chesterfield reserves who conceded 122 goals that campaign. At 17, he was called up for national service and was posted for Germany, where he met his future wife Ursula. He also helped Chesterfield to a final of the 1956 Youth Cup and broke in to the senior side. He made his senior debut for Chesterfield in a 2-2 draw with Colchester, taking the place of long-serving keeper Ron Powell. Banks kept his place to the next game, although he missed 3 games throughout the rest of the season. Chesterfield did not have a goalkeeper coach, and so Banks had to teach himself. He studied non-British goalkeepers to improve his technique, and became notorious for how vocal he was when organising his defence. After impressing, Banks was on the up. In 1959, he signed for Leicester City for a fee of £7,000, and said that he danced around the kitchen with Ursula when he informed her of his new salary of £15 a week. He had to compete with Johnny Anderson and Dave McLaren for a number 1 jersey, but would soon break into first team after periods of the reserves. Leicester's defence did not initially improve, but Banks made sure to spend extra hours at the training ground to improve himself, and Leicester ended up finishing 12th in the First Division. Banks became the undisputed first choice the next campaign, as Anderson and McLaren left the club. In the 1960-1961 season, Leicester finished 6th and also reached the FA Cup final, with Banks only conceding 5 times on the way. Sadly, Banks was powerless as Tottenham ran out 2-0 winners to seal the double. Leicester still reached a Cup Winners' Cup the next season, and Banks would be driven from Wembley, having been on the bench for England, to play at Filbert Street for Leicester that same evening. In 1963, Leicester travelled to Wembley again, defeating Liverpool in the semi-finals of the FA Cup, and the papers reported Liverpool had fired 34 shots on Leicester's goal, but Banks' fortress was impregnable. Sadly though, there would be no Wembley redemption, as Leicester lost 3-1 to Manchester United to fall short again. That same year, Banks had turned out for England for the first time. Alf Ramsey gave Banks his debut in a 2-1 defeat to Scotland, and he quickly solidified himself in the position, and it would be the start of something special. Banks would finally win some silverware in 1964, when Leicester defeated Banks' future employer Stoke in the League Cup final. Banks remained in the Leicester team for the next 2 years, despite disputes over pay and disappointing league finishes, but he was soon to experience a defining moment on the international stage. Banks was first choice for England by a country mile, going into the 1966 World Cup. In the first game, Banks was rarely involved, as England drew 0-0 with Uruguay, and another clean sheet followed with a 2-0 win over Mexico. Another 2-0 win sealed a place in the knockout rounds for England, with Banks' net remaining untouched. A fiery game against Argentina saw England emerge as 1-0 victors, and they faced Portugal in the semi-finals. Banks had a scare before the game, as he would usually rub chewing gum on his gloves to make them stickier, but Harold Shepperson forgot to bring any, and had to sprint to a newsagent's at Wembley Way to get some right before kick-off. 2 goals from Bobby Charlton put England in pole position, but Portugal would get one back with a penalty from Eusebio, the first goal Banks had conceded all tournament. England held on to reach the final. Banks' net sadly bulged early on, as West Germany took the lead in the final, but goals from Jeff Hurst and Martin Peters put England ahead. With seconds to go, the West Germans equalised, and the game went to extra time. Jeff Hurst gave England the lead with a goal the linesman controversially judged to have crossed the line, and he completed his hat-trick with seconds left. England were world champions and had the gloves of the man from Sheffield to thank. To only concede 3 goals in the tournament was incredible, and he was finally collecting the silverware his performances deserved. Banks was named goalkeeper of the tournament by FIFA and returned to Filbert Street as the world champion. However, he was soon sent packing, as the next year Leicester decided Banks' best days were behind him, and that he would be replaced by young Peter Shilton. Banks left on bad terms, with Stoke signing him, but not before Leicester were forced to give Banks a loyalty bonus, as the goalkeeper refused to move until he had one paid, and Stoke ended up paying Banks £2,000 themselves. Banks settled in well at Stoke, proving Leicester wrong and making a series of iconic saves. And in 1970, Banks is aiming to go for gold again. England travelled to Mexico for the 1970 World Cup, amongst the favourites. They won their first game against Romania, and the Three Lions would then face Brazil in one of the greatest ever World Cup matches. Carlos Alberto played a ball down a wing for Jairzinho to run onto. He whipped the ball in, where Pelé rose to meet it. The forward headed the ball towards the bottom right corner, and was so confident he shouted "goal" after hitting it. In a split second, Banks realised the shot was impossible to catch, and that he had to turn it over to prevent Pelé from getting in on the rebound. Amazingly, Banks leapt to the floor and managed to turn it over, as the stadium gasped in shock. Sadly, the magical gloves of Banks were no match for Jairzinho, who scored the only goal as Brazil won 1-0. England defeated Czechoslovakia to advance to the quarter-finals. They would have a rematch with West Germany, but fate prevented Banks from taking to the turf. Gordon Banks was suffering from an upset stomach the day before the game, and spent his time in a hotel bathroom shaking, sweating and vomiting. He would miss the game, with Alf Ramsey stating, "Out of all the players to lose, we had to lose him." Peter Bonetti took Banks' place, as England let a 2-goal lead slip to lose 3-2. Gordon Banks watched at the hotel, but with the game on a time delay, the England team returned to the hotel whilst the broadcast was still showing them as 2-0 up. Stoke reached consecutive FA Cup semi-finals in the 1970s, sadly losing both times to Arsenal. In 1972, there was a chance for Banks to claim a third piece of major silverware. Stoke win the semi-finals of the League Cup, and the second leg went to extra time. Gordon Banks saved a powerful penalty from Jeff Hurst, and the Potters emerged victorious to reach the final where they faced Chelsea. Stoke took the lead early on through Gerard Conroy, but Peter Osgood would level for Chelsea. With 17 minutes to go, George Eastham scored the winner to seal Stoke's first, and to date only, major trophy. Gordon Banks had triumphed over Peter Bonetti in the Chelsea goal to show who was truly England #1. Banks was named the FWA Footballer of the Year, the first goalkeeper to win it since Bert Trautmann in 1956. That year though, Banks' career would face its downfall. When driving home from a physiotherapy session, Banks attempted to overtake a car, but ended up colliding with a van and fell into a ditch. He required hundreds of stitches to his face, and was given a 50-50 chance of the vision in his right eye being saved. Sadly, the vision in this eye never returned, and being able to only see from one eye saw his goalkeeping abilities rapidly wane. As a result, he ended up retiring the next summer. In his 73 England caps, he kept 35 clean sheets, and they only lost 9 times with him in goal. He briefly came out of retirement to play a season for Fort Lauderdale Strikers in America, but retired once and for all afterwards. Banks spent time coaching, being on the staff at Port Vale, and later managed Telford. Telford sacked Banks as manager after he took time off for surgery, and said that to get the money he was owed, he would have to take another position at the club. Banks took the position of raffle ticket seller, but would only get 50% of what was owed to him. He said that it broke his heart, and he no longer wanted to be part of the game. Banks worked in hospitality, and later received many plaudits for his career, being an inaugural inductee into English Football Hall of Fame in 2002, and Pelé would unveil a statue of Banks outside Stoke's Britannia Stadium in 2008. Whilst Banks may not have won many honours in his career, the plaudits he received were endless. Gordon Banks died on the 12th of February 2019 at the age of 81 following a battle with kidney cancer. At his funeral, his pallbearers were goalkeepers representing his former sides, with Joe Anion of Chesterfield, Jack Butland of Stoke City, Joe Hart of England and Kasper Schmeichel of Leicester City. Tributes poured in for Banks, with Pelé saying that he was glad Banks made the save as it started a beautiful friendship between the two. Despite winning a World Cup, it is easy to see Banks' career as an underachievement due to him having only 2 League Cups at club level, but even so, few goalkeepers have such a legendary status as Banks. He is widely praised as one of the greats to this day and will continue to be for many years to come. He was one of the first goalkeeping superstars and helped redefine the position. His miraculous save against Pele is iconic, but there are so many more great saves he made throughout his career that support his claim to being one of the greats. England would not have won the World Cup without Banks, and whilst he saved many things in his career, his secure status as a legend will never need saving.